everyone, and welcome to everything home education, homeschooling. You're here with myself, Gail Hanlon, and I am a 30-year veteran of alternative education. And so, welcome. We are going to be having the most amazing interview with a fabulous author who I know and love. And I'm so excited to have a lot of questions and answers. If you have any questions, please pop them in the comments. And you know what? If you're catching this on the replay, please go ahead and still put in your questions, and I will relay them to our guest and see if we can get his perspective on your situations. So now we're just gonna, get into our regular stream of things. So go get something nice to drink and meet me back here in a couple of minutes. Oh no, I lost it. That's okay. It's right here. I can find it in a second. There we go. So that's not interrupted. That's why I do multiple streams. It's just so much safer. All right. So now here we go with our intro. So stick around to meet an amazing author. Well, we're going to jump right in here with Stephen Pearl, and he is a fantastic author. And I'm going to let him introduce, I'm going to read a little bit about him. But first of all, you can go to Amazon. We're going to be looking at his Amazon page and everything. But he is a fantastic author who's overcome a lot of challenges. And if your kids are having learning disabilities and challenges too, this is a wonderful person who can help you. Stephen is a multiple published author whose work range across speculative fiction field. His writings often incorporate real places and focus heavily on the logical consequences of the worlds he crafts. For more information about Stephen, we're going to put his link in the comments of the. So welcome, Stephen. Thank you so much for joining us. And
Thank you for having me.
tell us about yourself a little bit.
Well, I started off, I'll go way, way back to my early education. This was back in the 1960s. I was born in 61 and diagnosed as mentally retarded when I was in kindergarten. And then my parents didn't really believe that. They didn't think that that was reasonable. And fortunately, I have a much older sister. Sorry, Heather. And she was in university at the time. And she attended a lecture where they were talking about dyslexia. And they were going on as if this was some great new discovery at that point because it had just been labeled. Um, and she said, "Well, maybe this is Steve." So my parents took me to get private intelligence testing done because the school intelligence test was all spatial relationships. Now, if you want to look at a dyslexic, spatial relationships are not that sort of thing that we're going to excel at. So they took me and they had my intelligence tested, and the person doing it said they came out, they were just shaking their heads saying, he was diagnosed as mentally retarded. That's insane. Uh, so they went to the school board, raised hell, and got me into a special program. It was a pilot program for dealing with dyslexic children. And I was in that program intensively for 4 years. Then I went into an intermediate program for another year, and I still received additional tutoring in the years after that. And that was my entire grade school career. Uh, it was not uh, it was not pleasant, but it did instill in me a bit of an attitude that if you're going to come after me, well, you better get me with your first shot. Because if the bear's still alive, the bear's going to get you. And that has been kind of a guiding principle in my life ever since.
So, how did that emphasis, that targeted emphasis on your what they would call a disability, right? Um, how did that impact you? If they didn't do that, what do you think would have happened?
Well, if I hadn't gotten out of the school that I was in and into the special class, I probably would have been treated as somebody with a far below average IQ and only obtained to that. Now, the big problem with that, well, there was an upside to being diagnosed and recognized. There was also a big downside because my parents could deal with a label easier than they could deal with a child or a human being. So after that, everything became about my dyslexia. And if I was good at something, I was actively discouraged from it. If I sucked at something, I had to work so hard to get that because it's good for your dyslexia.
Yeah, we call that the deficit focus, and I am very, very big on the strength focus, even within challenges. Um,
Yeah. If somebody, yes, you need to have some basic skills. And that's that. But, if you're good at math, be good at math. You don't have to be good at writing. These now nobody said you have to excel at everything.
that's right.
And nobody said you have to excel at the things you're not good at. But once you can do it to a basic level, if you have enough math to do your taxes,
Yeah.
then beyond that, do what you're good at.
Do what you love.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's
so how did that emphasis relate to what you do now? Do you find that
well,
that targeted you, or what?
well, what it comes down to is with writing, I can speak to writing and a lot of other things. There are a huge number of factors that go into it. The mechanics of writing, spelling, grammar, and so forth. A lot of people think that's writing. If you're talking about creative writing, though, you have plotting, you have dialogue, you have to have an ability to see the world through the eyes of the other. Most writers are in reality introverts. The reason being, to be a writer, you have to be an observer. You have to be able to watch the people around you and understand where they're coming from, observe their actions, see what they do. You can't do that and be the life of the party. They're mutually exclusive states. So I have, I'm a relatively good actor. I won't say I'm a great actor, I'm not. I could never remember lines, but I am a relatively good actor. And as such, when I'm doing shows and so forth, I'm putting on this face, the Mr. Life of the Party. Oh, buy my book. I'm going to show this to you. And oh, it's so wonderful. La da 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 da. Then I get back to my hotel room. I'm out.
Yes.
It took everything I've got to put that face on. Um, Frankly, COVID, I kind of looked at it and said, all right, it would be nice to get out a little bit more often, but you know what? This ain't much different than I normally live.
And I'm the extrovert, so I took to this kind of platform to reach out to people and interview people, and I tell people they have to pay me to shut up. But but that's the way I've always been. I remember years and years ago, um, you and I kind of did some work together. I remember kind of trying to help tutor you with your reading, and I don't know if I was ever any help whatsoever, but I do not claim anything with your success. That's all you. That's all your imagination. And it's brilliant the way you pull things together, and the worlds you can imagine. I am not a very imaginative person. I'm great at taking something and adding onto it, changing it, making it something else, but I'm not very good at originating an idea or a creative idea.
Well, you see, with my writing, the first stage I always start with is creating the world. And okay, the Tinker series, which is very apropos for Earth Day, which today is Earth Day, everybody. Um, the Tinker series, the world is a logical extrapolation of where we'll be in about 200 years' time if we don't do something to fix the mess we're making now.
That long? Because I mean,
About that
yeah,
long.
yeah.
And that's based on the projections of oil reserves and when fossil fuels will no longer be a viable energy resource. Also, projections on global warming and global climate change. And basically, in about 100 years' time, there's going to be a collapse, barring new technologies or us getting off the pot and actually applying the technologies we have today to stretch out our energy reserves and basically make a livable world. But in about 100 years' time, there will come the collapse. And we can expect, I postulated about a 90% die off of the human population during that time period for the Tinker series because of the fact we use so much energy to clean our water, and we have practically no resistance to the waterborne diseases any longer. It's been unnecessary. Go ahead. You're muted.
Well, what advice would you have for young dyslexic kids? I invited you to the young authors group on Facebook, and so there are a lot of kids that love writing. NaNoWriMo has inspired a lot of kids, the National Novel Writing Month, and kids that have been told or labeled it, whatever disability or challenge, they don't really think they can do much.
Use it. Um, I'm really glad you mentioned that because it's something I want to address. In my own process, I will write my rough draft. Everybody does that. The day I've done that writing, I will go over it with my editorial tools once and clean up the worst of it. While I'm doing that, it forces me to read it. And as I'm reading it, I'm not only looking for the spelling and grammar, I am looking for character voice. Is the character voice consistent? I'm looking for, can I phrase this better? Um, One of the tools on every word processor is a search and replace command. I strongly recommend searching for suddenly, very, just, and you'll find others as you go along that we habitually overuse. Read every sentence, and then if the sentence is not stronger for having that word in it, take it out. And that's a great way to cut your word count, by the way. uh, but you find then after that day, I go into my next stage, and when the book, as I go through, I will re-edit again. When the book is finished, I re-edit again. But all of these times, I'm looking for spelling and grammar, but I'm also using it as an opportunity to correct the actual text, to make sure that every word pulls weight. Neil Gaiman was quoted, well, I often quote Neil Gaiman as saying, every word should pull weight. You shouldn't have a single word in a manuscript that doesn't pull weight. Now, sometimes they're going to creep in because nobody's perfect. But because of the intensity of detail, your literacy handicap may demand of you. It's a great chance to correct the other areas where you may already be strong, but no matter how strong you are, you can become stronger for it. So you take a weakness and you find how you can twist it around into being a strength. And this is what, it's not just writing, it's all through life. If you have a weakness, look for the seeds that it plants that can actually make you stronger. And also, don't deny your weaknesses. I can't spell worth beans. I get confused as heck with Hahnemans. Okay? You have to acknowledge that, because if you deny your weaknesses, then you're denying part of yourself. But you work to them. You work to mitigate them. I mean, I can hear that over here. Okay, this is how you can remember. I can hear, H-E-A-R, that over here, H-E-R-E. Little things like that. Make up those little sentences if you have Hahnemann problems. Make up your little sentences where the Hahnemann is placed and it's self-defined, and it will help you remember which one to use where. Uh,
I was
Please.
having a conversation with a mom whose kids are both dyslexic, and she was saying how hard it was to find appropriate specialists that don't cost $1 million,
Mhm.
um, and and for a lot of the homeschooling, you know, group of people who are taking their kids' education into their own hands, they've had a lot of different challenges, because sometimes they'll be told if your child's not in school, they can't access the special needs assistance, and then the what is it, CC, I can't remember what the acronym is, but they can apply for certain benefits to assist in those with those extra costs. Do you think that dyslexia is a reversible um, thing?
No.
Okay.
You can pattern yourself, you can learn to deal with it, you can take a disadvantage and turn it into an advantage, but it is part of how you're wired.
Mhm.
And they have done brain scans and found that there are minor but notable differences
Mhm.
between a dyslectic mind and a normal
Yeah, yeah.
quotation mark.
So my
I mean,
experience was a little different because my dyslexia was learned, and so I
mm,
was able to unlearn it. Um, but that goes into, Samuel Orton's work, and the learning in a pictographic way rather than an ideographic way rather than a phonetic way. And
yeah,
and
well,
so yeah,
yeah. Well, I have some things to say about phonics. Phonics is
yeah,
great for reading.
yeah.
Okay, phonics is great for reading, and I'm all for that. It is useless for spelling in English
Yes,
because the
absolutely.
logic is the
Absolutely.
wrong way.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are too many ways of making any given sound.
Yes.
So, you know, well, sound it out if you're going to spell it. No, it doesn't work.
I
Uh,
think that might be different for different kids. So try it and
well,
see.
yeah.
Yeah, if it
Well,
doesn't work.
the thing with dyslexia, it's kind of a blanket term for a whole bunch of different ways of learning and a whole bunch of different ways of cognition. So, what works for person A won't necessarily work for person B.
Mhm.
There are some general things that you can do that makes life easier, and those should be done, and those should be taught.
Mhm.
But you have to accept the individualistic nature. Now, one thing I will mention is the book Cloning Freedom and Freedom's Law.
Yeah.
They're both out in a dyslectic friendly edition.
What does that mean?
Well, what it means is it's slightly larger type. It is justified spacing. It uses it uses bold instead of italics. It's my publisher actually, when she found out I was dyslectic, said, "Oh, well, why don't we do this?"
Yeah.
And she did a little bit of research, and I consulted. But my experience is my experience. I've not actually tried to teach people how to read and write.
Mhm.
I've taught other things, but
But you know what works for you, and
yeah,
that can be a great help to people who find themselves like you. Um, and I'm just glad that you found um, your place and what you love to do, and didn't let those things stop you. Because a lot of kids, when the focus is on their label or their disability, they will turn away from any of that. and never allow themselves to explore.
Yeah. Well, writing is a passion. And if it's not a passion, do something else because you're not going to have, I say, if you want to write a journal, make notes, you know, but don't try to get published. Don't waste people's time if you need to write. If you are incomplete when you are not writing, if it is part of your heart and soul, then write and write the very best book you can. Edit it, edit it, edit it again. And when you think you've edited it, edit it again. Then send it off and get it critiqued. And I will mention a group called Critters, Critters, the writing group. It's an online writers group. This is not their official policy, but in effect, you critique a story a week for other people, and you get to have one story a month critiqued for yourself.
Nice.
They will tear your work apart, stomp on it.
So you have to have a thick skin.
Yes, you need a thick skin. They'll throw it in your lap, and then they will say, rebuild it. Better, stronger, faster than before. I don't know if there are any $6 Million Man fans in the audience, um, but it is an invaluable resource. But after you've edited it a half dozen times, send it through a critiquing group, either face-to-face, online, it doesn't matter. Get that input, then edit it again. Then maybe it's ready to go to a publisher. Then you send it off to a publisher or a paid editor, a professional editor. And it's not easy to find a good professional editor. There's a lot of people who they'll take your money and do a horrible job.
So what do you think about self-publishing?
Some of my best friends are self-published. I have two novels. I'm a hybrid author. I have two novels that are self-published.
Oh, good.
Uh, they were. It was a combination of legal factors and other
Yeah.
things, and it was easier to cut through it. Um, I have, I believe, 13 novels out at the moment.
Wow.
Uh, so if you are going that self-publishing route, definitely have a professional editor and a good one, and have them go over it because there are a lot of self-published books that simply are not ready.
Mhm.
This is reality. This is, I'm not on down on anybody. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm saying it's a lot of work and you're not going to do it without somebody to edit.
Mhm.
The advantage of going through a small press, because I'm small press published, I'm not with the big six. I'd love to be with the big six, but the big six are the big publishing houses. Mine are small and medium sized houses that I'm with. Um, the advantage of that is that you have a gatekeeper. You have somebody who's saying, I will not publish this unless I think it will make me money. And that puts a degree of quality control on the work.
Mhm.
Because everybody loves their own work when you're first starting. And pretty much every author I know goes through a stage that I call it's my baby and you can't touch it. And that's a devastating stage. And the faster you're through it, the faster you can actually start to deal with life and do something worthwhile. But unfortunately, with the self-publishing industry market, you have a lot of the it's my baby and you can't touch it that are not going that extra step to
Mhm.
have somebody touch their work and make it viable.
So how old were you when you realized this was something you really wanted to do?
23.
Was there a something that triggered that?
Well, this is you may be familiar with this story, Gail. You were there. I It starts with seeing a picture of the most strikingly beautiful woman I have ever seen on a collage of family photographs in your sister's house. And immediately upon that, I said, "Who is that?" And was informed that she had gone back to England. Well, a few days later, I'm dressed as a Scottish lord from about the 1200s, sword at my side, cape, and I'd just taken off my armor, and I see this vision walking across the grounds at Brock University, and full regalia, sword, surcoat, cape. I just thought, I'm not going to let her get away. So I walk up to her and I stand in the line for registering for classes with her, and we chat. And it was a really long line, and I have never before or since been thankful
Grateful.
for a long time. And so I finally we're getting close to the point that I can't go any further with her, and I said, "Well, look, I think you know that I'm trying to pick you up. Could we have dinner?" And she said yes. Well, it is now, I think, 36 years later, 37 years later. She's in the basement doing her thing right now, and I'm upstairs doing
Oh, you were
this.
gonna say dungeon there for a minute.
Yeah. Well, her computer's better than mine. So,
Oh, okay.
um, but what the upside of this was during the dating phase, I really wanted to impress her. So I wrote this absolutely horrific fantasy novel. It was titled Of Two Towers Tall. There is one copy of it in existence. It's in the basement someplace, hidden away. And Joy, the loving vision of this story,
And my
uh,
cousin.
has instructions to take it out and threaten to show it to people if I ever become an arrogant git. Um,
Not
what
a
writing
chance
that
of that.
book, not living with Joy. um, but writing that book accomplished several things. One, as I said, she's downstairs. I think we're about coming up on our 35th or 36th wedding anniversary. You lose track. You remember the date, not the year. Um, it also taught me I could do it.
Yeah.
It taught me that I could make one word follow another, that I could write a book. So after that, I wrote another book. And it started off as 160,000 words. And after several edits over several years, it is now something like 80,000 words in that range. And it's actually readable. It's one of the two that I put out as a self-published book, which is Havens in the Storm. And it is a nice fantasy book that avoids some of the cliches and tropes. Worth reading, well worth reading. I have better work, but it was just the second book, and the first one was completely unsalvageable. So, but
Well,
it's a matter.
I would love to continue this. I would love to, we have to go out for dinner for your anniversary. We should do that. Um, and I would like to ask you one last question for the families that have kids that are struggling. What would you be your best advice for them moving forward?
Believe in yourself. Don't listen to anybody who says you can't. With enough effort, anything can be accomplished. Now, the advice that goes with that also has to be decide whether you want to put that amount of effort in. I don't sing, mainly because I violate noise regulations if I sing. I'm a little bit tone deaf, and I I bellow more than sing. So I generally just don't sing. I'm my choice. I could have taken lessons in how to sing and probably risen to the levels of mediocrity, but it wasn't worth the time and effort. The thing that you know, I don't have the desire.
Your passion
So
was
your
not
passion.
in singing.
Well, yeah. Follow your passion. If you are passionate about something and you want it, don't let anybody tell you differently. Now, there's an interesting story involving Rob Sawyer, who is basically, he's probably the biggest Canadian science fiction author there is. He, at one point, wanted to be a paleontologist. And he looked at it, and people were saying, oh, don't become an author, you'll starve. There's no jobs in becoming an author, don't do that. And his first choice was author. His second choice was paleontologist. And then he looked at it and saw that there were only something like 12 or 13 paleontologists in all of Canada who were making a real living at it. And there were more authors in all of Canada that were making a living at it. So that's the other thing. Look at what your goal is. If you have a passion, pursue it, but know what you're getting into. Don't, okay, from my own history, something I wish I'd done. I trained for the ambulance at one point, and I never worked in it. I did the clinicals and realized it wasn't for me. I could have saved myself a year if I had volunteered as an ambulance attendant and spent some time riding third man on a two-man crew. And do things like that. Put your toe in the water, find out what it's really like, because you can't judge from television. I had the old television show Emergency with the two paramedics. That was a big part of why I got into the ambulance, and it's not like that.
So
So
what that's excellent. Excellent advice for the kids. What about the parents who are struggling with worrying about what their kids will be able to do? Will they be able to, you know, get get into university, or, all those things, and they're struggling with helping their kids? What advice would you give to them?
look at it realistically. Is your child better suited to the trades than to university? Is that how their mind works? Don't accept this bill of goods that everybody must go to university and everybody needs a degree and everybody. You know what? There are plumbers who are making more money than university profs. And you know what? It's a challenge. Plumbing takes a lot of smarts. Electrical wiring. The trades take a lot of brains.
Mhm.
And often it's more of kinesthetic, hands-on type of brains, which a lot of people who are labeled as learning disabled, actually, they excel in those because they have the intelligence that works through that kinesthetic nature. They, if they can get their hands on it, they can make it happen. Uh, and there's a lot of people who draw things up on paper and go on and on and on. Oh, it's wonderful, it's wonderful, this is how it's going to work. And then they can't understand why it doesn't work in the real world.
Mhm.
And I've run into that on several occasions, and it's sort of, and you tell them because I had a machine that it kept jamming, and they came and said, "Well, we don't know why this is doing this," and I said, "I'll tell you why this is doing it. It's on a concrete floor, and every time that piston comes down, it jars it, and that deviates it very mildly, and those repeated deviations results in a catastrophic failure.
Mhm.
If you want to solve this problem, take something like hockey pucks, bolt them to the legs so that you have some shock absorption. Problem solved." And the engineer looked at me as if I was retarded.
And yet that was the brilliant solution to their problem.
Yes.
And simple, simple and brilliant at the same time. Doesn't have to be extraordinary to be brilliant.
No, but also, yeah. So encourage your kids into what they're going to fit. And you're going to be happier if you do something, number one, passion, but also if you do something that actually suits you,
And
because we all do what we're good at.
and for those parents who are afraid that their children will be illiterate.
That is a little bit more trying because literacy is basically essential in our society. You pretty much, yes, some people get along without it, but most people, it's not an easy road. But most people can learn to read and write at a functional level.
Sufficient.
Yeah. And you also, part of it is a passion because if you find something that you like to read, you will fight through the barriers. Now, one of the things about the Freedom Saga with the dyslexia friendly versions,
I'm gonna
I'm sorry, I can't hear you, Gail. It's still dead.
there. That should be it. Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yes.
Yay. Okay, so I have your Amazon page up here, and it should show us you've got freedom. I'm gonna try to move over to Freedom's Law. Where is it going? Oh, there's there's
It's
one
the
of
write
those.
up for it.
So how many of like how many series have you got? I'm gonna try and escape that.
Okay, well, currently I have 3 series on the go. The uh,
Okay.
the Tinker's World series, that's Tinker's Plague and Tinker's Sea, and
Yeah.
there will be additional installments. I have the Freedom Saga, which is Cloning Freedom, Freedom's Law, Freedom's Myth, which will be out in December, uh, Arming Freedom, which is currently about 3/4 done in rough draft, and then there will be Freedom's War.
Let me
And after that, a kind of a wrap up book, Freedom's Life.
Nice. So you
Uh,
are keeping busy?
yep. And then there's the Bastard Prince Saga, which is Horn of the Kraken and Any Day Now, the Mistletoe Spear, followed by Wolf's Son, and after that it will be the Solar Shard. And
Oh,
they're Norse fantasy Viking adventures.
Alexa, stop. Ah, my Alexas. So there we got some more there. Freedom's Law. And I was really excited about the cats one.
Oh
Um
yeah, that's a one-off.
yeah.
Uh, a they've created a system of full VR5 plus, a full VR5 immersive computer interface. And of course, people have used this to make games.
Yes.
They're kind of like the role playing games,
Mhm.
but it's fully immersive and it's like really being there. And a group of people go in to play a game for weekends entertainment only to find that the crazy hacker ex-boyfriend of one of them has rigged the game that if they try to leave it, the nanobots that empower the interface will turn their brains to Swiss cheese. And so, also to make it worse, in the game, they've been turned into cats. So they have to get through the game as cats, confront the hacker within the game, and force him to show them the safe path out of the game. At the same time, if the cat gets out on the internet, it could become a cyber plague that could kill thousands.
I love that. I will be definitely see. I am more of an audiophile than a bibliophile. I love books. Gotta say,
Mhm.
have like 5,000 of them. But what I have discovered recently is if I get the Kindle edition and I ask my AI here that was bleeping at me a moment ago, uh, to read it for me, then she does, and I can listen to it rather than um, sitting down and reading it because I am just too bouncy off the walls to sit down for any length of time to read.
Mhm.
So I'm going to get all the Kindle editions and listen to them.
I, I don't know how it will translate with Alexa reading it. Um,
She's pretty good.
it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But
I am looking into audiobooks. It's an expensive route to go.
I know, I know. Anyway, I want to thank you so much for spending the afternoon with us and all your insight. And I know we're going to have a bunch of questions from people who are not available to watch this live. So, again, if you're putting questions into the comments on the replay, please don't worry. I will make sure that we connect with Stephen and get those answered for you.
Yeah. I just want to end it. Don't let anybody ever tell you you're stupid. Don't let anybody ever say that you can't. Abilities are very situational. I mean, if you wanted somebody to chart a black hole, Stephen Hawking's, he's your man. If you want somebody to save you when you're drowning, you're going to want Stephen B. Pearl. Distinction, Royal Life Saving Society of Canada. National Lifeguards for more years than I care to count. So life is very situational, and where you're going to shine is where you're going to shine. And you're not going to shine all the time, but you are going to have a place that you do. Find it, live it,
Thank
and enjoy yourself.
That's such a yeah, mind-blowing advice. Thank you again, Stephen. It's been so great to chat. And yeah, I'm gonna end this now, but I hate ending it now because I really love chatting with you and learning so much about your journey and how everything you've said is going to be helpful to other people. So you are a treasure, my dear. And thank you for joining me today. See you later.
Take care.
You don't have to leave. I'm just going to switch scenes here.
Okay.
And so thank you again. Oh my gosh, I hope you all enjoyed it. We went a little over time, which is not a problem because when you have a brilliant person that you can learn from, you want to spend all the time you can learning everything you can. So, in closing, I'm going to switch to our closing scene. And again, I put some links in the chat. So that'll be there when you watch the replay. So enjoy and have a great day. Remember everything that Stephen said. Don't focus on the deficits, focus on the strengths. And they might not be what you expect for your kids, but it's what your kids are drawn to. So thank you again. Hope to see you, everybody, again next week where we're going to be chatting. I don't have a final date, but we have a wonderful 12-year-old CEO, Sume, who is going to be joining us one of these weeks soon and tell us all about how she got her company up and running, helping other kids, hundreds of other kids, learn computer languages and coding and all sorts of fun stuff. So thanks again. See you next week. And if it will jump in. Oh, I think I'm going to have to try this. I don't know why my closing and my entrance. Let's hope that we don't crash. If we do, we'll see you next week. It's working on it. Gotta say, technology is challenging sometimes. I could just say goodbye, so maybe I'll do that. Take care, everybody.